I am not a dancer. I'm a dance teacher, but I'm not a dancer. I just finished a PhD in dance education, but I'm not a dancer. I even own a dance studio. You could probably say that dance is my life, but I'm not a dancer. You see, dance can be exclusive. Now, for all the dancers and dance teachers out there thinking, no, it isn't, then lucky you. I exist in the margins of dance. I never really understood why, but I didn't really quite fit in to the dance world. My dance journey started as a young kid at about 5 years old with some ballet lessons. I was far too energetic, far too strong-willed, and quite frankly, I was terrified of the old lady that used a cane to keep time with the music. I didn't last long. I got back into dance at around 10 years old and joined a class with students that had been dancing for quite a few years. In my time there, I don't remember a teacher pulling me aside and saying, "You'll be okay, you'll be able to catch up," or a teacher explaining something to me that all the other kids seemed to understand, or even just unpacking one of those foreign French ballet words. I felt undersupported, overwhelmed, and like it was all my fault. But there was something about dance that kept drawing me back. Later on in high school, I started dance again, and I loved it. I had a great time. I learned so much. I tried my best. But I didn't really feel like I quite fit in. I lived in the back line. I barely got any feedback from my teachers. Some of them didn't even know my name. And when I looked around the room and saw that I was the only ethnic girl there, I started to think that maybe my appearance was linked to my experience. I've had ballet teachers point to my thighs and say, "Where did those come from?" "From my Italian mother and my Greek father," was my usual response. While I felt like my body and my ethnicity was a bit of a barrier to ballet, at the same time, I was being called white girl when I taught the only jazz class at an all-street dance studio. I exist in the margins of dance. When legitimacy and authenticity is written on the body, how does that exclude us from experiences that other people have access to? What happens when we limit people based on their body, their appearance, their ability, their capacity, their sex, race, or gender? These questions aren't just limited to dance. All around us, the world is filled with activities, sports, careers, everyday little practices that dictate and legitimate who does belong and who does not. It took me a while to get here, but over time, all of these experiences crystallized into one mindset-changing question. What if I'm not the problem? What if the way we do dance is? I took this question and I ran with it for my PhD. You see, kids' dance classes, they're actually really, really popular, but there's very little research that looks at them. So my research looks at children's ballet classes to find out what we're actually teaching and how we're teaching it. My research shows that ballet teachers are doing far more than building just ballet dance. They're building ballet dancers. More than just needing to dance the right steps and be graceful and elegant and poised, students need to be the right kind of person. Now, what comes to mind when you think about a ballet dancer? Maybe someone that's disciplined, someone that's really, really focused or driven, like, they want to achieve, maybe a little bit of a perfectionist. Dancers don't just happen to have these traits. These traits are developed over time. They are cultivated in the dance studio. How does it happen? I like to think about ballet education as a bit of a hierarchy. At the very, very bottom, at its most basic and accessible level, we have ballet behaviors. These are externalized acts or ways of doing ballet. How do we do ballet? Well, we stand still. We get ready to dance. We're very quiet. We always listen to the teacher and we efficiently respond to instructions. We're always practicing. We attend class perfectly dressed, immaculately presented, and we always respect our teachers. But more than just acting like a ballet dancer, in order to be successful, students also need to think, feel, and be like a ballet dancer. They need to have the right dispositions. My research shows that students as young as 7 years old are being taught to be disciplined, focused, dedicated, responsible, independent, and to strive to improve. How are they being taught that? By taking basic ballet behaviours and lifting them up and reorienting them towards teaching internalised dispositions. For example, to teach discipline, we use standing still, being quiet, being ready to dance. But that's not all. In later years, students are already starting to demonstrate these behaviours and dispositions on their own. And teachers are extending them and cultivating them and making them more complex and nuanced. But more than that, they're actually starting to cultivate what they call the intelligent dancer. Now, the intelligent dancer is the student that can act, think, feel, be like a ballet dancer. But more than that, they are self-aware, they're self-correcting, they've internalised their teacher, they're self-monitoring. And at the very tip of the triangle, we have the ideal ballet dancer. Here is where that far outdated, stereotypical notion of the white, pretty, petite dancer exists. So we can see that far from just excluding people based on their body or appearance, there's all these other things that students need to do in order to be legitimate in ballet. But if we keep teaching to this ideal up here, what happens to the students who struggle doing things down here? What happens to the student who has a processing delay and may appear on the outside as if they're not ready to dance or they're not listening, they're not responding to instructions? But actually, they just need a little bit more time. What happens to the bold, curious, energetic student that's considered temperamentally unsuited to ballet? And what happens to the student that's labelled as disruptive, but their behaviour is actually just communicating anxiety and uncertainty? If we keep teaching to this ideal up here, an ideal that few of us can actually ever meet, we run the risk of excluding people who can benefit from dance and the physical, social, cognitive, and emotional benefits it develops. So, should our body, our ability, our sex, our race, our gender, should these things dictate participation and success? If the answer is no, then perhaps it's time we start to think about doing things differently. My mission as a dance education or a dance educator and a dance researcher is to change the way we do dance. Dance done different. It's my life, it's even my studio tagline. But what does it really mean to change the way we do dance? And what does it look like? Well, to be really honest, from far away, it looks a whole lot like dance. But take a step closer, and you'll see the difference. The difference is in the details. When it comes to inclusion and exclusion, often the most minute, mundane, everyday experiences are the most potent. I'll never forget chatting to a mother who came to do a trial class with us, and her daughter was 4 years old, had ASD and ADHD, and couldn't really find a studio that suited her. Do you know what stood out to her in that 30-minute lesson? It was when we were handing out ribbon wands, and her daughter wasn't ready to take one yet. We didn't pack it away. We put it on the floor and said, "Here you go, you can use this when you're ready." That's what stood out to her. That small, tiny little act said, "You're included, you belong, we want you to dance with us." Dance is powerful, and it can create these life-changing experiences, but only if we're included and only if we belong. Dance is a powerful medium because it develops skills that are transferable far outside of the dance studio. After all, discipline, focus, being independent, responsible, these are like set you up for success kinds of skills, right? But they're only developed over time. Dance is powerful, but to increase its reach, we need to move beyond just thinking inclusively and thinking about equality and actively promote diversity, difference, and belonging. Every day in my teaching practices, I aim to rebuild how we do dance education, and it's making a beneficial impact on our very own Inner West community. We have done away with tradition for tradition's sake. Goodbye oppressive pink tights, and goodbye front and centre spotlight for the talented student. In the place of tradition for tradition's sake, you'll find inclusive, progressive teaching that accepts difference for all students, no matter their age, sex, race, gender, capacity, or ability. Because after all, dance education teaches a whole lot more than just dance. We don't teach dance. We teach people. I'm not a dancer, and that's okay with me, because I've found my place in the world. It's disrupting dance.